One factor that was probably very important in this is the renewed interest for antiquity. Because, believe it or not, in the Renaissance there was a renewed interest for antiquity. Hello there, I'm Simon. Welcome to my channel. Today's topic was actually on my list of topics to cover anyway, but when I found out that June is actually Pride Month, I figured that gave me the perfect opportunity to cover it now. So yeah, today's topic is about the LGBTQ+ community. Alright, so today I'm gonna talk about my personal favorite historical figure, and I'm gonna try to find out if Leonardo da Vinci was in fact a homosexual. First of all, by my knowledge, there are no documents or sources that straight up tell us that da Vinci was gay, and even less saying that he was straight, which is kind of to be expected. I mean, homosexuality was considered a sin, so it's not something you'd really boast about, is it? I mean, I suppose someone else might accuse him of it, but the key word there is accuse. Just because people accuse people of something doesn't mean that it's true. People used to accuse each other of witchcraft as well. So I'm gonna say we need more. And obviously you're not really gonna boast about being straight, if that's what you're supposed to be. I mean, they're gonna take that as a sign that you're definitely not straight. So the absence of evidence in this case doesn't really mean all that much. However, there are a couple of things that make it seem, well, plausible that da Vinci was in fact gay. Firstly, let's talk about the Saltarelli affair. In the 15th century, Firenze had these boxes called Tamburi, in which civilians could anonymously drop accusations of misbehavior by other civilians. What could possibly go wrong? No way anyone's gonna abuse that system to get rid of their rivals or anything, right? Right? Anyway, why am I talking about this? Well, in 1476, Leonardo da Vinci became the victim of one of those boxes. In April of that year, someone dropped an accusation in one of these tamburi, accusing a teenager by the name of Jacopo Saltarelli of having had sinful interactions, let's put it that way, with a bunch of people, including one Bartolomeo di Pasquino, Pacino the tailor, Leonardo Tornabuoni, and of course Leonardo di Serpiero da Vinci. Following the accusation, the four men had to appear in front of a judge to get their sentence. However, charges were dropped. We're not quite sure why, but something that because Tornabuoni's family was associated with the Medici, they might have used their connections to let it all slide. I don't know. So Leo may or may not have had adult interactions with a male teenager. Or it might just have been a malicious person who was like jealous of his talents. But that kinda seems less likely to me than that it would just be true. Secondly, let's talk a little bit about Salai, or Salai. Giovanni Giacomo di Pietro Caprotti was about 10 when he joined Leonardo as an apprentice, and he was apparently, well, a bit of a bad kid. In Leo's notes, we can read several accounts of Giacomo breaking stuff, stealing money, and eating way too much to be good for him. That behavior earned the kid the nickname Salai, which means little devil. The weird thing is that despite all this, Salai seems to have been one of Leonardo's favorite pupils. Despite all that misbehavior, even theft, Leonardo kept Salai with him for the next 30 years or so. People have interpreted that to mean that Leonardo had, well, a certain amount of affection for the boy. But maybe he liked the kid because he was like the son he never had. Or maybe he saw himself in the kid. Maybe he remembered what he himself was like at that age, and so he cut the kid some slack, probably more than he should have. However, there are reasons to believe that there might have been more to it. I'll start with Giovanni Paolo Lomazzo. I'm just gonna call him Lomazzo. In about 1564, he wrote a book called Sogni e Ragionamenti, which means Dreams and Reasons. Now, in that book, he included a dialogue between Leonardo and an artist called Phidias. Obviously, it's a fictitious dialogue, because those two weren't exactly alive at the same time. Phidias was a sculptor in ancient Greece. He's the one who made the statue of Zeus at Olympia, which was considered one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world, and the statue of the Athena Parthenos at Athens. Leonardo was born in 1452, which is a teensy bit later, so a bit of an anachronism there. But the dialogue is still interesting, because in this dialogue, Phidias point blank asks Leonardo if he's ever played, and I quote, that backside game which Florentines love so much. Leo's response, many times. Now, I'm not an expert, but that doesn't seem to leave much room for interpretation. So this proves 2 things. Firstly, that even his chronological peers, which is a difficult way of saying his contemporaries, were convinced that Leo was homosexual, which admittedly doesn't prove anything when it comes to whether or not he actually was, but it is interesting that people believed it. So we may or may not be interpreting evidence in favor of our hypothesis, but at least we know his peers were doing the exact same thing. The other thing this little dialogue tells us is that this was not something weird about Leonardo. In fact, the Florentines were apparently known for this stuff. We know this because the church and other institutions tried to ban homoerotic activities on several occasions. In 1432, they even created a court called the Officers of the Night, specifically to prosecute homosexuals. So you might think, well, they tried to ban it, so surely it didn't happen, right? Well, not really. The very fact that they tried to ban it, especially the fact that they did it repeatedly, shows that the situation as it was probably not like that, and that it didn't really work all that well to ban it. One factor that was probably very important in this is the renewed interest for antiquity. Because, believe it or not, in the Renaissance there was a renewed interest for antiquity. It's kind of what the term means. Now, one of the things about ancient Greece is that they didn't really bat an eye at same-sex relations. The myths of Ganymede and Hyacinthus show the gods themselves engaging in this, and the story of the sacred bands of Thebes, which I highly recommend you to look up, is just one of the many examples of homosexuality being very much a thing in ancient Greece. And clearly the Florentines kind of like that idea. Actually, one of the theories I've seen for this prevalence of homosexuality in Florence is that they just didn't have enough women. Not sure how true that is, but there you go. So, if Leonardo was gay, it wouldn't actually have been that weird. It seems that, likely though it may be, there's no real evidence to prove, beyond reasonable doubt, that he was or wasn't gay. But based on the impression that he clearly left on his peers, the whole affair with Jacopo Saltarelli, and the fact that it wouldn't even have been that weird, I think he probably was. So, if people ask you if Leonardo da Vinci was gay, you can tell them that the short answer is that he probably was. And if they want the long answer, you can direct them to this video. I guess with that said, it's time for the YouTube thing, right? So, do you remember? It's comment, like, subscribe, share, and don't forget to ring that bell. Because otherwise, I don't know what's gonna happen otherwise. But apparently it matters, so please do it. Thanks. Alrighty then. Thanks for watching.